Well, let me start by stating this is not a cuppy subject, although it takes place in the deepest, darkest depths of the ocean, but with a completely unemotional villain. Ah, listen to those notes. You know you're feeling it and probably getting a little emotional, those who watch the movie and will never go back into the water. My choice of movie is Jaws, released by Universal Studios in 1975, and my choice of card is Justice.
You're gonna need a bigger boat.
The film is directed by Steven Spielberg and stars Roy Schneider, Richard Dreyfuss, and Robert Shaw, and is based upon Peter Benchley's novel of the same title. Jaws is a classic story of good versus evil. In this case, the evil is mostly unseen, but the major underlying component is justice, not only for the human characters, but also for our marine antagonist.
The beach town of Amity has had a shark attack, but Mayor Vaughn attempts to downplay this initial attack as a fluke. Chief of Police Martin Brody, not an islander himself, finally convinces the mayor to hire the only man capable for the job, Mr. Quint. Quint, Chief Brody, and Matt Hooper set out to capture the shark and soon realize they're in over their heads. In the end, it's Chief Brody who slays the proverbial sea monster.
Larry, the summer is over. You're the mayor of Shark City. These people think you want the beaches open.
I was acting in the town's best interest.
That's right. You were acting in the town's best interest, and that's why you're going to do the right thing. That's why you're going to sign this, and we're going to pay that guy what he wants.
Martin. My kids were on that beach too.
The figure of justice sits in front of a loosely hung purple veil signifying compassion, and our protagonist, the Chief of Police Martin Brody's veil, is his abundance of altruism. Throughout the film, Brody's actions are based on the well-being of his community, despite having knowledge of the personal risks and dangers that lie before him. He doesn't expect any rewards or acknowledgement. He proceeds out of a sense of duty.
You know, Alan, people don't even know how old sharks are. I mean, if they live 2,000-3,000 years,
Martin.
they don't know.
Enough. You're not going to even be able to go to sleep tonight. Here. Come on.
Thanks.
The chief, Martin Brody, is an unlikely hero. He is terrified of the water, but he lives on an island, and he is self-aware enough to recognize his shortcomings and to rise above them. Even though Martin Brody is a moral man who has his family and his town of Amity's best interests at heart, he is constantly being undermined, just like the laws set by justice.
Come on, get out of there. Take this stuff back to the office and get to work on those signs. Right. Beach is closed. No swimming. By order of the Amity PD. And let Polly do the printing.
What's the matter with my printing?
Let Polly do the printing.
Justice sits between two pillars, similar to those framing the High Priestess and the Hierophant, which symbolizes balance, law, and structure. What grounds Brody is his family and sense of duty. Justice holds a sword in her right hand, showing the logical, well-ordered mindset necessary to dispense fair justice.
Out of the water! Out of the water now! Everybody out! Get out! Get out of there! Get out! Out of the water!
What the hell is that idiot doing?
Everybody out! Just bluefish! Bluefish! Chief! It's a school of bluefish!
Okay, folks, it's all over. Come on, let's get back to this stuff, all right? Let's break it up.
It's okay! It's false alarm! It's all right, go back!
Here, Brody makes his decision based on the evidence that a rogue shark is attacking swimmers. Brody calls for everyone to get out of the water as he shoots at a school of bluefish, scaring all of the beachgoers. Knowing that this was a false alarm, the town turns on him as he faces embarrassment, but he never shuns from his sense of duty. The justice card visually shows the sword of truth pointing upwards, expressing a firm and final decision. And the double-edged blade signifies that our actions always carry consequences. The scales in her left hand show intuition and must balance that logic and are a symbol of her impartiality.
Polly, I'll get back to you.
Listen, can you tell me how I can find Chief Brody?
Who are you?
Matt Hooper. I'm from the Oceanographic Institute.
Oh, for Christ's sakes, you're the guy we called. I'm Brody.
Oh, I'm very glad to meet you.
Yeah, I'm glad to meet you,
Listen,
too.
I know you got a lot on your hands right now, but...
What can we do for you?
Well, I think the best thing for me to do is to see the remains of the first victim, the girl on the beach.
Okay, fine.
Chief Brody isn't the only character who's engulfed in the Justice Card. Matt Hooper from the Oceanographic Institute experienced the same resonance of responsibility that Brody does. Hooper feels unwelcome the moment he steps off the boat at the harbor. He's being called to account for his actions and will be judged accordingly. Mayor Vaughn questions Hooper's motives while standing in front of the Amity billboard, along with Chief Brody. Hooper implores Mayor Vaughn to pay attention to the proportions of the shark fin painted on the sign.
What are problems? I think that I am familiar with the fact that you are going to ignore this particular problem until it swims up and bites you on the ass. Now, wait a second.
Chief.
There are two ways to deal with this problem. You're
Chief.
either going to kill this animal or you're going to cut off its food supply.
Larry, we have to close the beaches.
Brody?
Justice declares if you have acted in alignment with your higher self and for the greater good of others, you have nothing to worry about. At its core, justice is about the search for truth. As you explore your truth, you will discover that things are not as clear-cut as you had thought. Be prepared to dip into the murky waters and explore what truth means to you.
Martin, there are all kinds of sharks in the waters, you know? Hammerheads, white tips, blues, makos. And the chances that these bozos got the exact shark...
now there's
that
no
killed
other
those two
sharks
people-
like this in these
Martin,
waters.
It's 100 to 1. 100 to 1. Now, I'm not saying that this is not the shark. It probably is, Martin. It probably is. It's a man-eater. It's extremely rare for these waters. But the fact is that the bite radius on this animal is different than the wounds on the victim.
Both Hooper and Brody have the best interest of Amity in mind, but they know they alone cannot catch or kill the shark. It's beyond their expertise, and each character recognizes this fact, sets aside their pride, and does what needs to be done. They're ready to take responsibility for their actions and stand accountable for the ensuing consequences.
Enter Quint, a man seeking his own justice. Quint lives by his own code. He chooses by connecting with his intuition and alignment with the highest good of all, and that is to destroy that shark, not only for the town, but really for himself. Brody and Hooper grow to respect Quint. He is a necessary evil. They need Quint. They need justice.
You all know me. Know how I earn a living. I'll catch this bird for you, but it ain't gonna be easy. It's bad fish. Not like going down the pond chasing bluegills or tommycods. This shark, swallow you whole. Shaking, tenderizing, down you go. And we gotta do it quick. That'll bring back the tourists. That'll put all your businesses on a paying basis. But it's not gonna be pleasant. I value my neck a lot more than $3,000, Chief. I'll find him for 3, but I'll catch him and kill him for 10.
Quint wastes no time asserting his authority, just like everyone else in Amity. Quint makes Brody feel inadequate and less than an authority figure. Justice is mocked again. But this is also what makes his triumph at the end much more satisfying. Brody's the unlikely hero. He's the underdog. We wonder why Quint has the thirst for justice against the shark, as he explains in the USS Indianapolis scene. This is one of the greatest scenes of dialogue ever captured on film, and we're going to play it all.
Very first light, Chief. Sharks come cruising. So we formed ourselves into tight groups. You know, it's kind of like old squares in a battle, like you see in a calendar, like the Battle of Waterloo, and the idea was shark comes to the nearest man, that man he starts pounding and hollering and screaming. Sometimes the shark would go away. Sometimes he wouldn't go away. Sometimes that shark, he looks right into you, right into your eyes. You know the thing about a shark, he's got lifeless eyes, black eyes, like a doll's eyes. When When he comes at you, he doesn't seem to be living until he bites you. And those black eyes roll over white, and then... Oh, then you hear that terrible high-pitched screaming. The ocean turns red, and in spite of all the pounding and the hollering, they all come in and they rip you to pieces. You know, by the end of that first dawn, lost 100 men. I don't know how many sharks, maybe 1,000. I don't know how many men, they average 6 an hour. On Thursday morning, Chief, I bumped into a friend of mine, Herbie Robinson from Cleveland. Baseball player, bosun's mate. I thought he was asleep. Reached over to wake him up. Bobbed up and down in the water. It was like a kind of top. Upended. Well, he'd been bitten in half below the waist. Noon the 5th day, Mr. Hooper, Lockheed Ventura saw us. He swung in low and he saw us too. A young pilot, a lot younger than Mr. Hooper anyway. He saw us and he come in low, and 3 hours later, a big fat PBY comes down and started to pick us up. You know, that was the time I was most frightened, waiting for my turn. I'll never put on a life jacket again. So 1,100 men went in the war. 316 men come out. The Sharks took the rest June the 29th, 1945.
But Quint later meets his justice due to his relentless murder of the species and his unequal balance of the truth that all sharks are killers.
Jaws author Peter Benchley later regretted the man-eating portrayal of the fictional white shark in his best-selling book. With his wife Wendy, he became an avid conservationalist, working with environmental groups and research scientists on behalf of oceans and sharks everywhere, until his untimely death in 2006. So, at the end, it's really the shark that gets the justice.
When you kill an adult breeding shark, you destroy generations upon generations of sharks that will fulfill the community, because there just are not that many of them. They don't reproduce enough to maintain the species. The loss to the world, to nature, would be both aesthetic, in that these are wonderful animals that have survived for hundreds of millions of years virtually unchanged, but also very practical, because if you take the apex predators out of the food chain, nature will be out of balance.
I'm Jordan, and we're glad you took a bite out of this. Thank you for listening to Tarot at the Movies. We'll see you soon.